focusing on the concept of the chosen one's suffering as a divine process for purification and preparation. It uses conversational, engaging language and maintains a similar paragraph length and style. The sacred weight of being chosen. There is an ache that defies definition, a weariness that has no visible source. It's a deep, quiet resonance within your soul, a feeling of being fundamentally out of sync with the peaceful, predictable world around you. This isn't the pain of a physical injury or the stress of a deadline. It's something far more profound. It's the profound sense that your heart is carrying a secret burden, a truth too immense, too sacred, to communicate through ordinary words. You've likely experienced the frustration of trying to explain this inner weight, only to be met with blank looks or trivializing advice, making you feel profoundly alone. This persistent, unexplained heaviness isn't a sign of flawed wiring or misfortune. On the contrary, it's a direct sign of divine distinction. Understand this: you, the one feeling this isolation and depth, are not simply existing. You are called. Those who are hand-picked by the divine don't navigate life with the same easy buoyancy as others. Their journey is marked by a steeper climb. Their inner world is a space of constant, unseen labor, and their struggles are often born in absolute solitude. The chosen ones don't just pass through life. They are subjected to a rigorous process of purification. They are meant to endure, to fundamentally transform, and ultimately to rise as brilliant examples of resilience. You were never intended to fade into the background, to be comfortable or conveniently anonymous. You were destined for the fire of refinement, a silent, intense heat designed to strengthen your spirit until it possesses the capacity to hold divine glory without shattering under the pressure. The profound truth of being chosen means you are engaged in battles the casual observer can never perceive. When people criticize your detachment or question your long periods of withdrawal, heaven understands your discipline. While they might mock your isolation or perceive your life as a series of setbacks, the divine is meticulously forging your very foundation. You are not trailing behind. You are being strategically disassembled so that God can rebuild you into the perfect vessel for His ultimate purpose, mirroring His strength and image. Every prayer that seems to vanish into thin air, every door that slams shut in your face, every rejection that stings your spirit, none of this was a random event. It was all part of a spiritual intervention, a profound and often painful divine surgery necessary for your elevation. And right now, as you hear these words, a powerful internal shift is taking place. This message is designed to illuminate what your pain has been hiding, the monumental purpose concealed within your most difficult struggles. We are about to unveil the 7 categories of deep pain that are almost exclusively felt by those selected for divine assignment. More crucial than recognizing these pains is learning the specific, heaven-sent strategies to overcome each one without allowing your essential light to be extinguished. These aren't merely misfortunes or struggles. They are sacred rites of passage. Everyone is a test, an essential preparation, a divine forging that makes your spirit capable of wielding great power. Therefore, I urge you to commit to staying with this message until the very end. This is not for entertainment or curiosity. I know with absolute certainty that if this message found its way to you, it's because heaven is ready to give you the context for your silent suffering. You are about to gain the clarity needed to understand why your existence feels so intense, and why this season of heavy preparation is utterly non-negotiable before your definitive breakthrough. The pains of preparation. Before we embark on this journey of revelation, I want you to participate in a small, yet powerful, symbolic action. If your love for God is genuine, a deep and unshakable truth within you, I ask that you click the like button right now. This is far more than engaging with an algorithm. It is an act of spiritual agreement. It is your soul-level declaration that says, Lord, I am open and ready to receive this vital revelation. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel, because the messages that are coming will bypass your intellect and speak directly to your innermost spirit, in ways you didn't even know you craved. I also invite you to comment with the number 99 below. This number isn't a random selection. In spiritual terms, it represents divine completion and, significantly, the one missing sheep for whom the shepherd always undertakes the arduous return journey. Hearing this message is proof. Heaven came back for you. This is your personal moment of divine re-entry. Now, take a deep, centering breath and consciously prepare your soul, because from this very moment forward, the narrative you hold about your pain will be irrevocably transformed. The suffering that has felt so defeating will be reframed as the evidence of your appointment, the isolation of misunderstanding. There exists a pervasive pain that doesn't manifest as a loud outcry. It is a profound silence that enforces isolation, the pain of being chronically misunderstood. You attempt to speak from the deepest, most authentic chambers of your heart, yet the listeners only manage to process the most superficial layer of your words. You endeavor to convey the vivid spiritual experiences you have, the dreams, the visions, the clear signs that visit you in moments of solitary contemplation, but all you receive are puzzled expressions and an unsettling, cold silence in return. The world often labels you as overly sensitive, intensely driven, or simply too different. They fail to grasp the fundamental reality. Your inner spirit communicates in a celestial language that their earthbound souls have never been trained to decipher. You are meticulously tuned to heaven's exclusive frequency, while the masses are still struggling to locate the most basic terrestrial signal. Being misunderstood is not a deficit. It is a spiritual confirmation. It signifies that you are entrusted with something exceptionally rare, an inner treasure too divine to be easily decoded by simple human logic. God has embedded a piece of His magnificent mystery within your being, and not everyone possesses the spiritual sight to perceive it. Recall the experience of Jesus Christ Himself. Even those who were His closest companions struggled to fully grasp the essence of His teachings. They were focused on demanding visible miracles, while He was solely focused on offering a profound transformation of the spirit. They craved simple explanations, but He spoke in unveiling revelation. This same pattern inevitably shadows the life of every chosen one. There will be necessary times when your deliberate silence is far more eloquent and protective than any vigorous self-defense. When God calls you to a higher altitude of purpose, He simultaneously summons you into a season of strategic quiet. This is because revelation loses its essential purity the moment it is exposed to the harshness of misunderstanding. The sacred vision, which was meant to be secretly nurtured and protected, becomes contaminated when prematurely shared with unprepared or resistant hearts. This explains why God sometimes conceals you in plain sight, not as a form of punishment, but as a deliberate act to safeguard the powerful potential that is currently developing within you. Therefore, you must cease the exhausting effort to convince those who were never intended to grasp the specific nuances of your destiny. Stop squandering sacred, potent words on ears that are spiritually unrefined. You are not unraveling. You are called. You are not disconnected. You are divinely directed. You are not stagnant. You are in the process of critical refinement. Your solitude is not a cage. It is your sacred and secret rendezvous point with the divine. In every moment you feel ignored or invisible, be assured that heaven is leaning in closer. Every time you are dismissed or overlooked, the angels are meticulously taking notes of your quiet endurance. The magnificent irony is this: being misunderstood creates a profound, unavoidable vacuum for divine intimacy. When the world fails to comprehend you, you are compelled to turn to the one being who truly knows you inside and out. It is in this fertile, lonely space that revelation deepens. Your discernment sharpens, and your tears are miraculously transformed into an anointing oil. Have you ever wondered why your mere presence can subtly unsettle individuals who have never even been directly harmed by you? It is because the radiance of your authenticity casts an exposing light on the truths they are desperately trying to conceal within themselves. Some people simply cannot endure being near you because your sincere essence convicts their complacency. Others cannot truly hear you because your words carry spiritual frequencies that their resistant hearts actively repel. Do not personalize this resistance. Heaven is training you to flourish exponentially without needing external validation, to walk your path without the permission of others, and to glow without any need for applause. The chosen are not meant to achieve popularity with the crowd. Their purpose is to be unmistakably recognized by the heavens. So the next time the feeling of invisibility descends upon you, remember a universal truth. From the ground, even the most enormous stars appear insignificant. But to those who rise to the altitude of their calling, those same stars are revealed as magnificent, blazing entities, the signal of isolation. Listen to this very carefully. The profound isolation you have been lamenting is most likely the clearest possible signal that God is mere moments away from revealing the profound reason why He deliberately set you apart. Every person chosen for a significant purpose undergoes a period of divine misunderstanding before the ultimate manifestation of their calling becomes utterly undeniable. When that climactic moment arrives, when the very thing that was once ridiculed becomes a tangible reality, the same people who doubted your sanity will inevitably utter the hollow phrase, "We always knew you would succeed," yet you will hold the undeniable truth. They never understood. Precisely because they were never meant to, God intentionally required you to navigate the long, challenging corridor of silence so that you could finally learn to hear His voice with zero interference from external noise or opinion. Allow the pervasive misunderstanding to meticulously refine you, but absolutely refuse to let it define your identity. Because what is coming next in your life will serve as a definitive and powerful explanation for every single lonely, confusing night. The very silence that once wounded you will soon begin to reverberate with divine recognition. Stay vigilant and prepared. The grand unveiling of your destiny is dramatically closer than your weary mind can currently perceive. The purification of separation. There is a unique silence that immediately follows an act of divine separation, a profound stillness that registers in your soul like a heartbreak, even though you can't point to anyone who actively wronged you. One day, the people you considered utterly trustworthy seem to fade away without explanation. The comfortable, long-standing conversations cease entirely. The places that once offered a profound sense of belonging suddenly feel overwhelmingly heavy, utterly foreign and disconcertingly distant. You replay countless moments in your memory, searching desperately for a mistake, wondering what critical thing went wrong, but the evidence never adds up. And in that chaotic confusion, your heart is left whispering, "Why, God? Why have you suddenly removed this essential part of my life?" Yet the answer from heaven is gentle but firm. Because you asked to be used. When the Almighty decides that it is time to elevate you, the very first step He takes is to strategically isolate you. This separation is not a penalty. It is a purification. It is the crucial unseen stage where heaven proactively reorders your life to ensure the protection of your destiny. The unvarnished truth is that not every single person who walks alongside you in one season is meant to arrive with you in the next. Some people were designed to be temporary footbridges, not lifelong foundational elements. God is fully aware of the conversations you never overheard, the self-serving motives you lacked the discernment to detect, and the dangerous traps that were meticulously disguised as seemingly benign friendships. This is precisely why He makes the difficult decision to cut the ties before they grow strong enough to choke your sacred calling. The process of pruning is inherently painful because it occurs while you are still actively growing and invested. You are tricked into believing you are suffering an agonizing loss, but in reality, you are being powerfully shaped for your next level. God is surgically eliminating access for those individuals who would inevitably drain your vital spiritual oil before your lamp is even ready to fully illuminate the world. He is deliberately detaching you from old, familiar atmospheres so that you can begin to breathe the essential air of your next greater assignment. Sometimes He will even slam shut the doors you were fervently praying to enter. This is not because those paths were inherently evil, but because they were simply too restrictive for the magnificent expansion He is currently building inside you. And yes, this process is deeply painful. It is confusing to suddenly be surrounded by silence after seasons of profound, vibrant connection. But here lies the essential mystery. God frequently answers your most sincere prayers by taking away the very things you were convinced you desperately needed. You prayed for spiritual strength, so He mercifully removed your crutches of human dependence. You prayed for absolute clarity, so He strategically eliminated your most potent distractions. You prayed for undeniable growth, so He gently but firmly removed your most comforting familiarity. This sequence of events is not a rejection from God. It is a divine realignment of your entire life's trajectory. There is a profoundly sacred significance to being stripped of what feels safe and familiar. Because when you are left utterly alone with nothing but the raw essence of your faith, you are finally forced to recognize who truly sustains your existence. You begin to sense the undeniable, palpable presence of God in the quiet, empty spaces. You start to grasp the liberating realization that what was removed from your life was not just holding you back. It was actually protecting you from the stagnation of staying the same. The intense pain that accompanies this separation teaches you a vital lesson: how to fully rely on the unseen, unpredictable, but utterly faithful hand of God rather than the comfortable, but ultimately unreliable, predictable nature of man. In some cases, God will even permit people to misunderstand or slight you simply to facilitate a cleaner, easier detachment. He will allow them to walk away so that you are spared the temptation of trying to pursue them. If you could see what God sees, the devastating conversations that would have crushed your spirit, the hidden betrayals that would have annihilated your focus, you would be down on your knees, thanking Him for every single closed door. The entire concept of divine separation is not about emotional distance. It is about destiny. Consider the monumental example of Abraham, who was commanded to leave behind every single thing he had ever known, without being given a map of his ultimate destination. Think of Joseph, ruthlessly torn from his family, cast into a prison and sold into slavery, only to be dramatically elevated to the prominence of a palace. The pattern remains unyielding. Separation always precedes true elevation. You cannot afford the luxury of carrying everyone into your next higher season. The further you ascend, the more strategically light you must travel. So if you currently find yourself in that desolate place where the echo of goodbyes is deafeningly louder than any answers, you must hold on with everything you have. God is not actively taking things from you. He is taking you to a space of greater magnitude. Every empty space that now aches is being meticulously prepared to receive a new level of divine glory. Every oppressive silence is merely the majestic prelude to a profound and personal divine conversation. You are not being punished. You are being powerfully positioned. The individuals who departed were essential chapters in your story, but they were not the culmination of your destiny. The doors that irrevocably closed were not a message of rejection. They were a clear, unambiguous redirection. And here is the most crucial part that most individuals never realize until the challenging season has completely passed. One day, you will inevitably look back and realize with stunning clarity that every single thing God systematically removed from your life was actually creating the necessary and vital space for everything He had prophetically promised to you. The painful separation you desperately hated became the essential preparation you profoundly needed. Therefore, do not waste precious energy chasing what God has already dismissed. Do not beg for the return of what He has clearly laid to rest. The very same divine hand that surgically removed them is the same hand that is currently guiding you toward a destination of unparalleled sacredness. You must trust His painful pruning, because when the inevitable dust finally settles and the oppressive silence is broken, you will understand the truth. Every single goodbye was a carefully planted seed of something greater. Perhaps the most immediate reason you are engaging with this message right now is that heaven needs you to stop mourning what is dissolved and start actively and spiritually preparing for the incredible reality that is rapidly approaching. Just beyond the perimeter of this demanding season of isolation, your purpose is waiting to be powerfully unveiled. The weight of spiritual warfare. There are mornings when you wake up already completely exhausted. This isn't the simple fatigue of overwork or insufficient sleep. It's the unsettling feeling that your soul has been vigorously wrestling throughout the entire night. You possess no adequate vocabulary to explain it. You continue to smile. You function through your daily tasks. But deep beneath the surface, you are acutely aware that something invisible is fighting you, a struggle that no one else can possibly perceive. This palpable heaviness is not accidental. It is resistance. The profound confusion you feel is not purely emotional. It is intensely spiritual in origin. What you are experiencing is not generalized anxiety. It is active warfare. You are being vigorously opposed precisely because your current transformation is making you an imminent threat to the kingdom of darkness. The enemy is too strategic to expend his energy on the mediocre or the ordinary. He specifically and relentlessly targets the anointed. He understands that if he can successfully drain your mental energy, distract your core focus, and fundamentally disturb your inner peace, he can successfully delay the birth of the magnificent promise that God has carefully placed within you. This is precisely why the most intense attacks consistently manifest when you are the closest to your breakthrough, not when you are at your weakest, but when you are actively ascending. Observe how the invisible pressure always seems to intensify right before you are elevated to your next spiritual level. This is not an unfortunate coincidence. It is a powerful confirmation. This invisible, ceaseless battle is definitive proof that something consequential in the unseen realm is violently trembling at the magnitude of what you are about to manifest in the visible world. Your very thoughts are not just fleeting ideas. They are active spiritual battlefields. Every single lie that is slyly whispered into your mind is a spiritual arrow aimed directly at the core of your identity. The enemy works tirelessly to convince you that you are utterly alone, permanently forgotten, and intrinsically unworthy. However, if he is fighting you with this level of ferocity, it is because you are carrying a destiny that unequivocally threatens everything he has painstakingly constructed. He sees the spiritual authority you have yet to fully recognize. He sees the intense, undeniable fire in your spirit that possesses the power to ignite countless others. This is why his attacks often occur in the dead of night, shrouded in silence, and masked by confusion, because he is absolutely terrified of the moment when you finally achieve complete self-realization of who you truly are in Christ. But you are definitively not defenseless. Long before the enemy ever conceived of his current attack plan, God meticulously designed your complete spiritual armor. You are already clothed in a faith that cannot be punctured, a truth that cannot be corrupted, and a prayer life that cannot be silenced. The intensity of the warfare around you is real, but the power residing unequivocally within you is infinitely greater. You were never created to engage in battle fueled by fear. You were designed to fight decisively with faith. You don't need to engage in loud shouting matches to achieve victory. You simply need to learn how to kneel, because every time you bow your head in surrender, heaven instantly takes a definitive stand. Every time you shift to worship, spiritual weapons are formed in the unseen realm. Every time you whisper the name Jesus, the entire atmosphere is instantly transformed, and legions of angels are mobilized. This is the essential secret the enemy desperately hopes you will never discover. Your greatest weapon is not your own physical or mental strength. It is your radical surrender. When you choose to fight your battles on your knees, you are rendered spiritually unstoppable. When you elevate your hands in worship instead of wringing them in worry, the tide of the battle dramatically turns in your favor. Prayer is not a sign of weakness. It is sophisticated warfare in disguise. It is the powerful, authoritative language of ultimate victory. Sometimes, what feels like the total collapse of everything around you is actually heaven strategically rearranging the battlefield for your decisive win. You mistakenly assume you are losing, because your human eyes cannot perceive the multitude of angels flanking your position. You feel that the darkness is closing in for the kill, but in a profound spiritual truth, it is actively retreating because your unyielding endurance is completely confusing your foe. He fully expected you to quit and curse God, but here you stand, still believing, still radiating light in the oppressive darkness. This very resilience terrifies the depths of hell. You were never intended to focus your fight on visible, earthly enemies. Your actual defining battle is waged exclusively in the spiritual realm. Every single time you choose faith over debilitating fear, silence over a reactive argument, and fervent prayer over panic, you win. Even when the circumstances suggest nothing is changing, the war's final narrative is being rewritten in your favor. The angels are wide awake and actively engaged. The King of Glory has already emphatically declared the final outcome. So, if that familiar invisible pressure descends upon you tonight, do not succumb to it. Take a deep breath, engage in worship, and pray with conviction. The silence you perceive is not a sign of absence. It is a careful, strategic movement. God is meticulously surrounding what has been surrounding you. And when He makes His decisive move, the very darkness that has been hunting you will be compelled to flee in the same abrupt, sudden manner in which it first arrived. Stay absolutely alert, chosen one, because this intense battle is rapidly nearing its conclusion. When the dust finally settles, you will realize with clarity that the struggle which attempted to destroy you was actually the divine mechanism building the powerful warrior God destined you to become. The agony of divine timing, there, is a distinct kind of profound pain that doesn't inflict a physical wound, but quietly erodes the spirit, the excruciating pain of waiting for God's perfect timing. It is not the sudden loud storms that exhaust you. It is the protracted, quiet seasons where all forward momentum seems to have ceased. You have prayed with intensity, engaged in fasting, and held on to belief until your very heart trembled with exhaustion. Yet the heavens remain stubbornly silent. You awaken each morning, desperately hoping for a clear sign, a definitive shift, an open door. But the only sound you register is an overwhelming stillness. And in that stillness, the agonizing question invariably surfaces: God, have you completely forgotten about me? However, what you perceive as an agonizing divine distance is often the deepest level of divine design. This is the unshakable truth. God's silence is not an indicator of His absence. It is an intrinsic part of His overarching strategy. The simple truth is that waiting is the intense furnace where the authenticity of your faith is purified and refined. It is within the seemingly endless delay that your core motives are tested. Your emotional heart is meticulously refined, and your fundamental endurance is significantly strengthened. We, as humans, tend to ask for the immediate blessings, but God is always primarily focused on building a vessel that is structurally strong enough to contain them. And that level of deep capacity takes a non-negotiable amount of time. If you rush the divine process, you run the enormous risk of arriving completely unprepared for the very thing you so desperately prayed for. Heaven's timing is not measured by human slowness. It is surgical in its precision. Every single second of your waiting period is meticulously infused with precision, intentional purpose, and a hidden layer of profound mercy. Consider the biblical figures who endured such trials. Abraham waited multiple decades for a promise that seemed logically impossible. Joseph navigated betrayal, years of unjust imprisonment, and the agony of being completely forgotten before he was dramatically elevated to the royal palace. Anna devoted her entire life to waiting in the temple, just for one glimpse of the Messiah's face. The singular, unifying discovery they all made, and what you must grasp, is this: when God finally decides to move, everything that came before instantly makes perfect sense. One single glorious moment of fulfillment will completely validate all the years you spent in silence. Because God does not execute partial deliveries. When He finally releases your promise, it is total, flawless, and undeniably complete. But let's be absolutely honest with ourselves. Waiting is painful. It is especially grating when you observe others effortlessly receiving the very things you have been fervently praying for. You question why their doors swing wide open while yours remains hermetically sealed. But what if your door is currently undergoing intensive structural reinforcement, rather than being arbitrarily delayed? What if your long season of waiting is not fundamentally about what you are currently not receiving, but intensely focused on who you are actively becoming during the wait? Because waiting is never a passive state of being. It is an active season of preparation. God does not orchestrate delays to waste your valuable time. He causes you to wait to prepare you to successfully endure and remain once the coveted blessing finally materializes. Every period of divine delay involves an invisible, intense construction project. While you are patiently waiting for the grand promise, heaven is actively building your foundational strength. You cannot yet see it, but your spiritual roots are steadily growing deeper. Your faith is becoming structurally stronger, and your inner spirit is learning to rely completely on the character of God, rather than on predictable outcomes. This is why He deliberately conceals His perfect timing, not to torment you, but to compel you to learn how to walk entirely by faith and not by sight. The waiting room of heaven is the birthplace of champions. It is where future prophets internalize patience, where emerging leaders are taught humility, and where ambitious dreamers are schooled in radical surrender. Do not simply sit and stare obsessively at the clock. Utilize this waiting period to aggressively sharpen your spiritual sword. Pray with deeper intensity. Study the scriptures more diligently. Commit to full and complete healing, because the exact moment the door finally opens, you will have absolutely no time for preparation. You will be immediately required to perform. Therefore, you must replace your deep-seated frustration with eager, expectant anticipation. Every delay you currently face is definitive evidence that God is aligning a reality far beyond your current imagination. When His internal clock says not yet, it is not a rejection. It is a careful, intricate orchestration. He is not merely preparing the blessing for your benefit. He is intensely preparing you for the blessing. And here lies the stunning paradox. The more prolonged the wait, the more monumental the purpose concealed behind it. What is rapidly approaching will not comfortably fit into the constrained life you currently inhabit. That is precisely why He is stretching your capacity. That is why He is currently silent. You are not waiting for nothing. You are waiting because heaven is painstakingly perfecting the synchronization of absolutely everything. So if it feels as though time has completely stopped, rest assured it has not. You are precisely in the middle of a powerful divine synchronization. When the celestial clock finally strikes your name, no earthly force, no demonic power, will possess the ability to delay it for another second. And perhaps this is the profound reason you are here and still listening right now. You are closer to your moment than you have dared to believe. The pervasive silence is about to be shattered. The intense stillness is about to transform into a magnificent song. And when that happens, everything that required years of agonizing waiting will unfold completely in a matter of seconds. Stay ready, because true patience is not quietly waiting. It is actively and faithfully walking until the miracle finally catches up to you. The warfare of forgiveness. The concept of forgiveness sounds beautifully poetic until you are forced to give it a face. Specifically, the face of the person who utterly shattered your trust, aggressively stole your peace, or looked directly into your eyes while intentionally wounding your soul. It is exceedingly simple to preach about the virtues of letting go, until the one you are required to release is the very individual who broke you into 1,000 pieces. That is the exact moment when forgiveness instantly ceases to be a comforting word and escalates into a full-scale spiritual war. It becomes a brutal conflict between your deepest heart, which desperately craves healing, and your wounded flesh, which screams for decisive justice and retribution. But here is a fundamental, transformative truth that most people are unwilling to tell you. Forgiveness is not a sign of meekness or spiritual weakness. It is a profoundly powerful act of warfare. It is an active, definitive spiritual defiance against the darkness that attempted to inject poison directly into your core soul. Because every single moment you choose to cling tightly to bitterness, the enemy successfully secures a dual victory. He wins once when they initially hurt you, and he wins again when you voluntarily refuse to allow yourself to heal. You are not liberating the offender when you choose to forgive. You are unequivocally liberating yourself. You are throwing open the heavy door of a spiritual prison and realizing with a shock that the person who was truly trapped inside was you all along. And yes, forgiveness is deeply, profoundly painful. It requires a total surrender of your innate human right to seek revenge. It means making the conscious, terrifying choice to trust that God's perfect justice will execute what your limited human hands cannot possibly achieve. It means saying the difficult words, even if they never apologize, even if they never truly grasp the depth of the damage they inflicted. I am choosing peace over poison. That is the hallmark of divine maturity. That is the kind of profound strength that heaven instantly recognizes and honors. Remember the ultimate example. Jesus, bleeding, gasping for life on the cross, looked directly at the very people who brutally nailed him there and uttered the words, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Reflect on that truth for a moment. He was still in the agonizing throes of intense physical pain when he chose to release mercy. He did not wait for a sense of comfort to settle over him before extending grace. This is because forgiveness is not the magical cessation of pain. It is the crucial, painful beginning of true healing. And here is a vital, often misunderstood point. Forgiveness does not automatically mandate the restoration of the relationship. In fact, sometimes it is the spiritual mechanism that releases them permanently. It does not require you to pretend that the injury never occurred. It certainly does not mean you have to blindly trust them again. It means you are making the powerful, internal decision that their wound will no longer possess the power to control your future. You consciously stop the endless replay of their offense and deliberately start remembering the magnitude of who you are. Because forgiveness is not about diminishing the severity of the wound. It is about reclaiming your personal power from the devastating grip of that wound. When you authentically forgive, a sacred and consequential event takes place in the unseen realm. Heaven pours a soothing, healing oil over your deepest scars. This is not to magically erase them, but to radically transform them into undeniable testimonies. The exact place where you were most severely cut now becomes the place from which you carry healing for others. What was once agonizing pain is now transformed into purpose. What was intended as total betrayal is now the painful process of a birth. This is because you simply cannot carry the magnitude of your anointing without first surviving the necessary crushing. Some of you who are listening to these words are still emotionally carrying people in your spirit that God removed from your life years ago. Their damaging words continue to echo relentlessly. Their absence still causes a sharp, bitter sting. But that constant obsessive replay is the enemy's favorite film, and you are the one faithfully giving it precious screen time. Stop feeding that toxic memory. Allow it the grace to finally fade. The instant you choose to release it, God is finally able to rewrite the narrative because he cannot completely fill hands that are still tightly gripping resentment. I know the inner argument you are having, but they absolutely do not deserve forgiveness. And maybe, on a human level, they truly don't. But neither did we at the moment that God extended his forgiveness to us. Forgiveness is not fundamentally about fairness. It is about absolute freedom. And every single time you choose to forgive, you dramatically take back spiritual ground that the enemy aggressively stole from you. You instantaneously shift the atmosphere. You forcefully remind hell that divine grace runs infinitely deeper than any human pain. The devil's primary goal is to keep you bitter, because bitterness is a proven blockage to blessings. He wants you constantly angry, because anger severely distorts your spiritual vision. But forgiveness, on the other hand, restores total clarity. It reopens the windows of heaven over your life. It is the only force that can heal what therapy cannot touch, fix what no apology can mend, and completely erase what time alone fails to dissipate. So, tonight, if you are listening, and the face of an individual keeps violently flashing in your mind, that is your distinct spiritual cue. Do not run from that confrontation. Whisper this simple prayer from the heart. God, I honestly don't feel ready to forgive, but I am entirely willing to want to. That small yet profound act of willingness will instantly move the heavens on your behalf. The Holy Spirit will meet you precisely in that vulnerable space, not to magically erase the memory, but to completely heal the toxic emotion that is tied to it. And when that powerful healing begins, you will notice a strange, liberating phenomenon. The very person who once possessed the power to make you cry will no longer be able to control your inner peace. You will think of them and feel nothing but a profound, peaceful release. That is the moment you will know. The chain is definitively broken. The cage is wide open and you are spiritually free. Because forgiveness does not possess the power to change the past. It radically redeems it, Perhaps this very moment is not about trying to forget what happened, but about finally remembering it through a completely different lens. The glorious, redemptive eyes of grace instead of the suffocating lens of grief. The holy weight of calling. Let me pose one final, challenging question before we move forward. What if the very individual who inflicted the deepest wound upon you was the one God specifically used to powerfully unlock your destiny? What if the painful betrayal was not divinely intended to crush you, but was actually the intense labor to birth the next, more powerful version of yourself? Ponder that profound possibility, because the next section will reveal the precise, inescapable reason why the pain had to occur. There exists a singular kind of weight that cannot be alleviated by a trip to the gym or simply slept off during a quiet weekend. It is the holy, non-negotiable weight of a divine calling that simply refuses to detach itself from the core of your being. You feel its presence when the room falls silent and an unmistakable inner voice commands, "Get up." You feel it when your friends are engaging in lighthearted laughter and your spirit subtly but firmly whispers, "Step aside for a moment," while the general populace aggressively pursues fleeting noise and easy distractions. You are consistently summoned to the unseen realm. While others meticulously plan their next luxurious vacation, your inner self is planning vigils and periods of focused spiritual intercession. This is not a matter of mental obsession. It is a profound, non-negotiable obedience. You did not consciously select this path. It irrevocably selected you. The assignment settles upon your chest like a powerful, heavy mantle, not intended to crush your resolve, but to fundamentally shape your posture and internal state. It serves to recalibrate your essential appetite. It enforces boundaries that your impulsive flesh would never willingly choose. You start to live by a series of constant interruptions that are actually direct personal invitations. The sudden weight of a midnight burden, a name flashing urgently in your mind, a specific scripture that will not release its grip on your thoughts. You quickly learn that true spiritual leadership is not a platform for applause, but a sacred stewardship. It is the difficult, constant choice of saying a firm no to numerous good things, so that you can confidently say an absolute yes to the core God thing. And yes, this path is inherently lonely. It is a holy and necessary loneliness. The calendar of heaven consistently overrides your personal social schedule. Your circle of acquaintances shrinks dramatically. This is not because you are suddenly superior to others, but because you have been entrusted with prophetic words you cannot yet speak, entrusted with spiritual doors you cannot yet fully open, and entrusted with an anointing oil that only increases in potency under intense pressure. This is the non-negotiable reason why you cannot quit. The fire that burns relentlessly in your bones is not mere stubbornness. It is a sacred assignment. The calling will relentlessly track you through every detour you attempt to take, and it will aggressively disguise itself as an unshakable restlessness anytime you try to run or hide. You will discover the truth that spiritual authority is an intense weight training regimen. You are required to lift the burdens that others casually drop. You must carry the spiritual weight that others deliberately avoid. You are expected to forgive faster, repent quicker, and listen longer than the average person. And crucially, when comprehension eludes you, you must instantly surrender. This is because revelation almost always follows obedience, not the other way around. You do not require the entire comprehensive map. You simply need to focus on your very next single step. Pray, move, repeat. Your immediate obedience today unlocks corridors that your limited vision cannot yet perceive. One single yes becomes a key. Another consistent yes becomes a door. Another committed yes becomes an entire hallway of undeniable, supernatural favor that you could never have manufactured on your own. And when your human mind inevitably rebels and argues against the difficulty, forcefully remind yourself of this truth. God does not choose the qualified. He meticulously qualifies the chosen, in silence, in secrecy, and through uncompromising consistency. Therefore, allow the profound calling to actively refine and dictate your internal rhythms. Rise the instant he nudges you. Write the moment he downloads a thought, and intercede immediately when he places a burden on your heart. Guard your consecration. With the same diligence you guard your ability to breathe, because what you are currently carrying is not for some distant abstract future. It is actively shaping your character right now, your tone, your internal timing, your thresholds of endurance. This is precisely why common distractions suddenly feel significantly heavier than outright sin. This is why compromise leaves a bitter, lasting aftertaste. This is why a life of mere average no longer fits your spirit. You are currently being fitted for a spiritual armor that was custom measured for you in eternity. And here is the essential mystery that effectively converts pain into lasting power. The more completely you surrender to the process, the lighter the mantle will ultimately feel, and the stronger you will become beneath its weight. Keep steadfastly walking, chosen one. Keep repeating your sincere yes, one obedient step at a time, because somewhere just ahead, on a path that only obedience can fully illuminate, the very weight that severely tested you will become the definitive evidence that ultimately crowns you. And what awaits you around that corner will provide a crystal-clear, irrefutable explanation for why the refining fire had to burn this intensely hot. The fire of refinement. There inevitably arrives a moment in the journey of every chosen individual when their life feels as though it is utterly burning down around them. You have experienced devastating loss of things that mattered deeply. You have wept behind locked doors until the well of your soul felt completely empty. You have prayed until you were hoarse and heard nothing back but the hollow echo of your own voice. You look at the lifeless ashes of what used to be your stability, your meticulous plans, and your core relationships, and you whisper into the void, God, where are you in all of this? But what appears to your eyes as unmitigated destruction is not an act of abandonment. It is, in fact, intense refinement. The consuming fire is not intended to maliciously destroy you. It is meant to aggressively expose what cannot withstand the heat and must therefore depart. The simple truth is, fire never lies. It reveals the fundamental truth of what a thing is truly made of. Anyone can offer superficial praise when life is calm and convenient. But the furnace is the spiritual crucible where authenticity truly speaks. It is the place where your faith transitions from being a convenient Bible verse you casually quote to becoming the very essential air you must breathe to survive. When every single thing you depended upon begins to melt away, you are forced to learn the brutal difference between what was genuine gold and what was merely spiritual dust. This is the profound reason why God permits the heat, not to punish your mistakes, but to completely purify your substance, because he will never utilize what he has not first rigorously tested. Before he releases you into your public ministry or destiny, he meticulously refines you in profound privacy. And this is the essential, often painful paradox. The closer you stand to the fulfillment of your calling, the hotter and more intense the fire becomes. You are not immersed in the flames because you committed a grave error. You are in the flames because you are carrying something fundamentally right and powerfully significant. The crushing pressure you are feeling is not a random misfortune. It is the undeniable proof that you are currently in the forge of destiny. Just as raw gold must be subjected to extreme heat to achieve its ultimate brilliance, your spirit must be severely tested to possess the capacity to carry the sheer weight of glory. The flames do not arrive to destroy your core identity. They are there to aggressively burn away your insecurity, your self-reliance, your paralyzing fear, and your crippling doubt, until the only thing that visibly remains is a flawless reflection of him. Remember the ancient story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were thrown into a furnace that was intentionally heated 7 times hotter than its norm. Yet the scripture testifies that when the powerful king looked into the inferno, he saw not 3 men but 4, and the 4th figure possessed the unmistakable appearance of the Son of God himself. That is the profound secret of the chosen. Jesus does not always choose to pull you immediately out of the fire. He often elects to join you directly within it. He walks through the most terrifying chaos with you, unburned, completely unbroken, and utterly unbothered. And when you finally emerge, You don't merely survive the ordeal. You carry the unmistakable, indelible fragrance of heaven itself. The fire is never, ever wasted effort. Every profound loss, every silent tear, every single sleepless night has been a sacred spiritual transaction. Whatever was consumed and burned away was never intended to remain as part of your permanent foundation. You are convinced you are losing ground, but the heavens are aggressively clearing a wide-open space for something divine and new. Because sometimes God is required to let certain inadequate versions of your former self die completely before the miraculous resurrection can fully occur. He cannot crown the person who is still desperately clinging to comfort and familiarity. The intentional death of the old you is the powerful, inevitable birth of the chosen you. You will know that the refining process is successfully working when you completely stop asking the victim's question, "Why me?" and begin whispering the surrendered command, "Use me." That is the exact moment when the intensity of the fire miraculously shifts its purpose. You begin to grasp that your intense suffering was not meaningless punishment. It was a sacred, essential process. It taught you profound endurance, genuine compassion for others, and unquestionable spiritual authority. You begin to see clearly that your scars are not painful signs of failure. They are the visible marks of your commissioning. The flames that once filled you with paralyzing terror now serve as powerful, undeniable testimony on your behalf. And one glorious day, when the residual smoke finally clears away, you will look at your reflection in the mirror, stronger, infinitely wiser, and almost unrecognizable to your former self. The very same fire that maliciously attempted to consume you will be the absolute reason for your magnificent, radiant shine. Because this is the undeniable way God operates. He effortlessly converts ashes into glorious crowns, deep wounds into potent spiritual weapons, and crushing pain into an unwavering ultimate purpose. If you are currently navigating this intense fire, do not pray for an immediate escape. Pray instead for the unshakable strength to endure. Do not ask for the flames to abruptly cease. Ask for the grit and determination to stand firmly until they have fully accomplished their perfect, refining work. Because when the process is complete, you will not have simply survived. You will have been utterly transformed. The unveiling of glory. And perhaps this is the core reason you are still here, listening to these words. The fire was never sent with the intention of killing you. It was sent with the purpose of definitively revealing you. It was meant to expose the version of you that simply cannot be intimidated by any storm, manipulated by any fear, or silenced by any doubt. You are being meticulously purified for a profound level of glory and impact that the world has not yet been given the chance to see. Stay fully committed in the fire, chosen one, because something utterly divine is flawlessly forming in the flames. And what ultimately rises from those ashes will serve to silence every single voice that has ever dared to doubt your destiny. Now, you possess the clarity to see the profound pattern behind every agonizing heartbreak, every bewildering period of silence, and every invisible, uncried tear. These 7 distinct pains were never a random sequence of bad luck. They were all precise divine tools, meticulously shaping your core soul into something unshakable, reliable, and utterly trustworthy to the heavens. You were never, ever being punished. You were being powerfully prepared. Every time you felt you broke under the pressure, rest assured, something sacred was simultaneously being born within you. Every time you felt hopelessly delayed, destiny was simply taking a necessary breath, aligning every single piece of the universe for your imminent arrival. Every single tear you have shed has watered the deep, essential roots of your purpose. Every single rejection was a wholly crucial redirection. Every battle you were certain would completely destroy you was secretly and expertly building your spiritual armor. You are not fragile. You are fundamentally forged in fire. You are not forgotten. You are being strategically hidden for a grand revelation. God did not accidentally overlook you in the crowd. He was diligently, precisely over-preparing you for an immense task. This is because the chosen are never trained to lead in comfort. They are rigorously refined in the furnace of trials. You are rapidly becoming the exact person that the darkness desperately hoped you would never evolve into. A living, undeniable testimony of survival, of relentless endurance, and of profound divine transformation. The world can only see the visible scars, but heaven sees the sacred signature, the undeniable proof that you have navigated the fire and still triumphantly carry your light. And when this necessary season of refining is finally complete, when the last of the dust settles and the oppressive silence is broken, the world may not immediately recognize you, but they will unequivocally see the reflection of God shining brilliantly through the cracks they once mocked as failures. Say this truth aloud right now, not as a whisper, but with deep, unshakable conviction. My pain has purpose. Write it boldly in the comments below, not just as a phrase to share, but as a definitive prophecy over your own life. Let the heavens witness your absolute agreement, because this very declaration seals your forthcoming breakthrough. It is a clear message to the spiritual realm that you are finally done surviving and are now fully ready to reign. The demanding time of refining is rapidly concluding. The triumphant season of revelation is upon you.